I'm welcoming you once again here on air. Happy to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I'm very pleased to be here.
Let me get your understanding of what is happening. First Texas, now Florida, then we've heard statements made by President Trump. What is the direction that is happening within the US government at this stage?
Well, with regard to the Muslim Brothers and the domestic organization CARE in the United States, a lot of it is political, but the United States has always had an uncomfortable relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood. Uh, Even as we covered it as an embassy in Egypt, it was something that we watched very carefully to monitor whether they indeed had terrorist ties. And there are strong views on both sides of that argument. It is the connection with Hamas that has probably brought them into close focus at this time. As you know, Hamas's leaders originally came from the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood before forming Hamas. And so there are those who believe that the ties are strong and that there is a direct connection with terrorism. That said, to have an individual state do a designation is far closer to a political move, a visual as opposed to a substantive move.
So right now I could see you mentioned the word it's a political decision. I could see
Hmm.
also from the terms that were used that it's framed more or less in a political lingo rather than a legal one, so that you think it is to avoid any strike that may happen within the federal court.
I believe that both of these governors, of course, are very, very conservative Republicans. They are strong supporters of the state of Israel. This is a way of signaling rather to domestic voters who have this issue as a priority, their stance. And of course, there is some increase in um, anti-Islam or nervousness about Muslims in the United States, along with many other groups. But in the last several days, of course, people are looking at the shooting recently in Washington, D.C. by an Afghan man. Others are looking at Minnesota, where there is a large scandal uh, of fraud and mismanagement that was connected with Somalis. And so, right now, there are tensions that have to be overcome because we are a diverse nation. But these things do happen from time to time. So, this is a way of signaling, as I said, support for, I believe, for Israel. And these two governors have taken this method. The federal government is reviewing to do a similar designation. That is very true. It has been considered in previous administrations as well, but not done because there is a strong argument that the organization does adhere to political changes and has distanced itself from terrorism specifically. So, CARE in the United States has brought suit against Texas and will certainly bring suit against Florida for this designation.
All right, from my understanding of what you're saying is you personally see that this was taken as a decision just in favor of Israel, even though we as Egyptians, we're calling you from Egypt, we have suffered from this organization, and it took us quite it was quite a heavy brunt on us that in order to try and get rid of them. And it was the Obama administration that stood fast to support the Muslim Brotherhood. So,
Mm.
end of the day, is this a Democratic versus Republican point of view? You as a Democrat and the rest of the Democrats, they don't see them as inciting violence, and the Republicans see them as inciting violence.
No. And the reason I say that so quickly is because I worked for Republican and Democratic administrations. And in each of those administrations until now, there was a decision not to designate, not just President Obama. I worked for President Bush when I was posted to Egypt, where we did have conversations with the Muslim Brothers from diplomats at the embassy. This wasn't a domestic political issue at the time. I am certain that there are many Democrats who support a designation of the Muslim Brothers, but if it happens for it to be a policy decision as opposed to a political decision, the federal government would have to do it. Right now, Texas and Florida are two large states, but they are not the United States of
Of course,
America.
of
The
course.
Florida designation is very similar to the Texas one, which means care, in this case, cannot receive government funds. But it is not that anyone who is giving money to care or working for care could be arrested or charged with any sort of crime. That is not the nature of the designation. For that broad sort of uh, punishment to be given to an organization, the federal government has to do it. And that's not what has taken place.
Is it the federal government or is it the federal courts that have to come up with such a designation?
Well, it's the federal government, but you can be sure that lawsuits will ensue, and then the courts will make a decision in the end.
Right. And you look at the entire scene in the region, and we know that the Muslim Brotherhood, they have a hand maybe in each and every Arab and Islamic country, and wherever they were, things were not going smoothly. I'm trying to pick my words not to go to an extreme. So they caused troubles wherever they've been, and probably because you served in the region and in Egypt, you know very well that most of these violent groups, the terrorist groups, they had some connection, at
Mhm.
least in their inception, from within the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, that is one of the arguments that have people advocating for a designation, that even if it's not a direct tie to violent or terrorist activity, that it is a radicalizer of people, and then they go on. So there is a keen awareness of this. And certainly, as diplomats, as the US government, we do know and understand the challenges that Egyptians have had with Muslim brothers in the country. So we do know that. But until now, the decisions have not been that it was across the board a foreign terrorist organization. Again, this could change soon. As the federal government is actually reviewing and considering such a designation.
All right, but you could see the shift that has happened along the past couple of years in the vision of Americans towards these organizations. I'm sure if you can see on television right now, or maybe with a recording that we will send you, you remember
Mhm.
the scenes that were here in Cairo and in many cities, and all those crimes that were committed in the streets before the cameras, and there were horrific scenes that were done at the time. So can this just pass by naturally, that they are a peaceful organization, or that it's only in Egypt that they do this?
Well, again, we do understand that there are at least indirect ties. But the law and the designation for a foreign terrorist organization is very precise. And now I speak with my hat as a former coordinator for counterterrorism. The case has to be made, it has to be able to be defended in court for the United States to put on such a designation. So the research has been ongoing. Uh, it may at this time prove overwhelming, and the government may follow through on a federal designation. But there was enough in the past years that there was at least some question about direct connections with terrorism or violent activity by the organization versus individuals who may have had a connection to the organization. And this is the same way if many people are blaming wide numbers of people within a group for the actions of a few. So the government certainly tries to be very careful and very precise before it gives such a designation.
Madam Ambassador, as usual, it's a pleasure speaking to you and looking forward to talking to you again over very critical issues like this one. And I could see that you're very carefully choosing whichever word that you uttered today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
السفيرة جينا وينسنلي المديرة السابقة لمكتب شؤون المشرق في وزارة الخارجية الأمريكية، وزي ما هي قالت لنا برضو أنها كانت مسؤولة عن ملف مكافحة الإرهاب.